Thank you, Jamie, for making that video on time and so quickly. I really appreciate it. You did a great job arguing some of your points, but I'm still not convinced on a lot of them, and there's still some holes in your logic, and as much as I hate to attack on them, I am going to. Starting out with your view on the current education system, I believe it does a fine job in testing students into the correct class level. You argued against this and say that there's a huge problem with students not being in the correct level, but this is something that the current system is extremely cautious about. For example, you can't move on to the next class for anything unless you've passed the previous class. And not only that, but when you go from elementary school to middle school to high school, or enter any one of those at any level, you have to take an entrance exam to make sure you're at that certain level. And this allows students to be at the level they need to be at. For example, it gets renewed every couple of years. And even going into college, it's not just at the primary or secondary level, it's something that is always in use. Every 2 to 6 years, the students are reevaluated. And not only this, but they aren't allowed to move on until they've passed their class with a decent grade. This is something that the government's had a very good eye on, and they're having a very good success rate with their students who are prepared when they're young and go on to higher education levels, understanding the material from every subject really well. Also moving on, you said that racial minorities are consistently put into special education. They have lower average GPAs, they have a higher dropout rate, and you're blaming this on the education system when you look at it realistically, as unfortunate as it is, these students are below average not because they're physically inferior, but because they were raised in cultures that are more likely to prepare a student less than another culture. And although this is a very sad thing, the education system does not lock them in this at all. The education system has built remedial classes, they have built extension programs, they've built all of these things that were just made so they can keep these students ahead. And not only that, but they've educated these students to teach their future generations how to be more successful. This has absolutely nothing to do with the certain race or ethnicity being picked on. This has everything to do with the government doing their best that they can possibly do to help these children excel. This is not picking on them. This is not racist. It is very helpful. We're trying to help everyone, and we really need to see that. Again, a third point you made in your video was how researching is very vital to the students and how it's very important. But again, when you make your plan, you go on and on and on about how research is very important, but you create a fallacy where you're implying that the change is going to occur at some point, but I can't really assume that. Maybe you just want to do all this research. So that argument does become a little bit inaccurate, because to have an effective argument, you need to close. You need to say, hey, we're going to have all this research, so then we can do this, this, and this. Again, your plan just has the research, so I don't think it's as effective as it could be, and I don't think it's going to help reform. I think wasting our funds like that would just hurt us, and I think it would help if you made the emphasis on that, because your argument currently isn't very great. Moving on to the last point you made, which seems to be the highlight of our arguments, is Finland's education. Again, I think it's irrelevant, even though you argue against it, and the reason is that even though they have an excellent education, they aren't performing well, and you didn't define these certain categories, but these are the most important. I'm saying categories such as the economy, the government is much stronger in America, our military, our arts, our sporting events, they're all much stronger. The key components that make up how successful a country is, they are all doing excellent here as to where they're not in Finland. So even though they do well on the tests, it's not helping them as a country. And you went on to say, oh, but this doesn't really have any, it doesn't have any relevance. There's nothing that these categories excelling has to do with education, but that's everything it has to do with it. A government invests, they tax everyone to pay for this education system so we can invest and have our students, our future generations, benefit. If Finland is investing all this money into an excellent education system, but then they don't see results in their future generations, it really is worthless. America's is very different, where even though we don't have the highest scores in cities like LA, cities like New York, large cities with a lot going on, these students do go on to do amazing things, to be in the military, to go to college, to invent things, to just be fantastic citizens. They don't necessarily need an excellent test score the way in Finland. You kind of do. Also, it's just the relevance of things. It doesn't add up the way you would like it to. But again, thank you for arguing. I hope I get that last video from you soon, and I look forward to it. Thank you, Jamie.